Missing persons. 800,000 children go missing annually. Adult women are most subjected to being missing. Whether they're kidnapped, alive, or dead, we never know because they aren't there anymore. So grab a blanket, turn off your lights for 3 stories about missing people, and the stories to explain them. Scholarship abroad. My boyfriend's mom is 43 now, so the other day we're talking about unexplainable events when she started telling me about her best friend in high school. When they were about 17 to 18 and were finishing up their last year of high school, a bunch of scholarships abroad had come out. Living in a small island in the South Pacific, opportunities to study abroad were hard to come by. And being a smart girl, naturally, her best friend applied. A few months later, she received a call that she'd received a full scholarship, inclusive of allowance and accommodation. She received an official letter, contract details. The parents spoke to a lady on the phone who explained the whole process to them. All she had to do was sort out her visa, pay her airfare, and she was set to go. Someone would meet her at the airport and make sure she settled in. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. D-Day arrives, and she's off on her new adventure. The best friend gets on the plane, promises to call them as soon as she gets access to a phone. She never called home. They tried contacting the lady they had been speaking to over the phone. The number didn't work anymore. The family contacted the university that she had received the scholarship to. They had never heard of the girl. She wasn't enrolled in any classes. There weren't even any scholarships available for this country. And that was the last time anyone had ever heard from her. Almost a victim of human trafficking. Best friend and her mother still missing. Hello? This sad, terrible story took place in the year 2003, when I was a 14 to 15-year-old girl, still living in my home country of Uruguay. My best friend at the time, who was at the same age as me, was my neighbor who lived with her mother and grandmother, 3 houses down from mine. We had been friends since we were babies. We grew up together, went to the same school, moved in the same social circle, went on vacation together, shared clothing, CDs, food. We were basically sisters. Our families were close. Her mom, early 30s at the time, was a single mom working as a secretary. They didn't have it bad. Between her salary and the grandmother's pension, they lived comfortably and without any major setbacks. Her mom started seeing a foreign guy who was in the country for business. He claimed to be from Spain, but he had a funny accent, as if he was originally from Italy or another non-Spanish speaking country. He was supposedly rich, despite staying in a rinky-dinky hotel. He would often show pictures of himself in a very luxurious residence. He said it was his house in Ibiza, pictures of him driving a red sports car, a picture of him in front of the Eiffel Tower. Oh God, how innocent we were, and so on. After a month and a half of dating, my friend's mom said they were leaving the country in perhaps the next 6 to 7 months. She was in love with him, and he had promised her a life of luxury in Europe, and that everything was going to be perfect. The country they were moving to? Spain. Her and her daughter, the grandmother couldn't come, at least not yet. She was supposed to meet them in the future after they settled in, but at the same time, wasn't he rich? So many red flags. This is where I come in. Since I was such good friends with my best friend, the guy had told my best friend's mom to bring me along for vacation, that it would be good for my best friend, make the transition easier, etc. I, of course, was very thrilled. A month in Europe with my best friend who was moving away, and the idea of going to see her every summer and to stay at her stepfather's mansion, it was a dream. My parents, of course, weren't so thrilled at first, but as they got to know him, they liked him, and eventually he won them over too. Eventually, I even got a little weekend job as a waitress at my uncle's restaurant to help my parents with the plane ticket and other costs. We got my passport. We were ready to go. As the months went by, it became evident that I wasn't going to be able to join. The money I had saved wasn't enough. It didn't even cover half of the ticket, and my parents couldn't come up with the money for the rest of the trip. A week or so before they left, the guy came to my house and talked to my parents. He offered to pay for my plane ticket. My parents politely declined. I was fuming. I swore I could never talk to my parents again. I didn't come out of my room for days. Eventually I got over it, and when it was time to go to the airport to say goodbye to them, I did. We cried, we hugged, we promised each other we would meet up next summer. By then, I would already have the money saved. They left. We never heard from them again. The days went by and nothing. I remember the grandmother, the pain on her face, the nights she went on without sleeping, home alone, without her daughter and granddaughter who were supposed to call her as soon as they arrived in Spain, and yet they never did. Eventually, they were reported as missing. Surprisingly enough, the guy had given out his real name and last name the whole time, so after the cops got involved, turns out he had this huge record in Spain and Italy, and had been in jail for drugs, prostitution, kidnapping, extortion, and God knows what else. The police told their family that they were most likely sold into a human trafficking ring, and that this was very common, and sadly that there was too many of these cases like it. There was nothing they could do about it. But wait. Last time anyone ever saw them or had any register of them was at the airport in Seville when they arrived. Nothing else. It breaks my heart even to this day, and to think that if my parents had said yes, I wouldn't be here today. It sends chills down my spine. Sometimes I look up my best friend on Facebook in hopes that I'll find her. Maybe she regained back her life and her freedom. But nothing ever shows up. The grandmother died in 2013 too, sadly without ever seeing or hearing about her daughter and granddaughter again. Missing person. This is not necessarily a creepy encounter, more of a situation where I felt as if I could have done something and just something unnerving, and I still think about it a lot. This occurred about 6 months ago. My boyfriend and I were walking along a main road to get to the bus stop. We were walking along, and at a point you need to cross a smaller road. There was a fence across the road, and we both noticed an Asian man standing against it, with a long ponytail. He was just sort of smirking at everyone, as if he knew something we didn't. For some reason, we both noticed him, which was odd because we were deep in conversation, but honestly, he just stuck out too much. We continued down the road about 20 meters when we came across a missing persons poster. On the poster was a man named Adam, an Asian man with a long ponytail. We both instantly stopped and stared at it, and said at the same time, "I swear we just passed him." And I honestly, to this day, am 97% sure that it was actually him. We stood there for quite a while, debating on what to do, but decided that we could do no wrong and just left it. But the resemblance was crazy. They were identical. And the poster said that he was loved and missed, and if anyone had any information to please contact them. About 3 weeks later, I received a text from my boyfriend saying that he just saw an article about a man named Adam committing suicide. Thinking about it makes me feel horrible and disgusting, and I knew in my heart to do something, but I was scared it was a misjudgment. It feels good to get this off my chest, as I've been too ashamed to tell anyone, because usually I try my hardest to do good in the world, and the fact that I didn't do something when I knew I should have just eats away at me.